everyone, and welcome to Skincare and Beyond, your go-to beauty podcast that goes deeper than skin deep. I'm Kimberley.
And I'm Suze, your skincare experts at Face the Future.
If you've ever felt overwhelmed by skincare advice, unsure which products actually work, or just want to level up your routine, we've got you covered.
In our new FTF Advice Session episodes, we'll be answering your biggest skincare questions, busting some common myths, and sharing expert tips on how to help get you the healthy, glowing skin you deserve.
So whether you're dealing with breakouts, dryness, or just want to fine-tune your skincare routine, stick with us.
So let's get started with some quick questions from our FTF community.
So, I've seen lots of trends on teen skin at the minute. How can I help my teenager form a good skincare routine?
So first great question, I think I'm going to lead with Suze. Why don't you start by answering this one, seeing as Suze has got two lovely teenage children.
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would say with teenagers would be to educate them, encourage them to get good habits with the skin and listen to what they're saying. So it is really difficult with teenagers often when we hear them say maybe some of the trends and things that we don't think are going to work or are suitable for the skin. But actually, if you listen to them, they're going to go and do that anyway. So the best thing to do is to educate them, listen to our podcasts, show them the blogs on our website, do a little bit of digging yourself and just encourage them to have a good skin healthy habit. Really, unless your teenager's got a condition where they've got acne or they're really starting with breakouts, we just want to encourage them to cleanse the skin, use a light moisturizer and SPF, I would say, are kind of the biggest things. Encourage those healthy habits, SPF immediately. Often my daughter's using a lot of makeup and it's about then how does she cleanse the skin after and look after the skin so that she's got that healthy barrier and she's not using anything that's too harsh.
What would you say to them though if they come up to you, Suze, and they go, I want to use this TikTok trend that's going on?
So I've had a few arguments with Lottie in the past about certain things, and it is more about empowering her with education. So explaining to her, yes, so retinol is something that we might want to use as we get older, but at the moment your skin is full of collagen, it's got that cellular turnover, it doesn't need that. She's starting to have a few little breakouts now, so I'm going through, gentle BHAs, having a look at maybe introducing a bit of salicylic acid. She is coming up for 13 and hormones are rife. But it is just about encouraging those good habits and listening to her really and trying to steer her in the right direction, looking at, like I say, our blogs and things like that.
What about your teenage son? How do you get him to wash his face?
Yeah, now that's a different matter. So he is slightly different. So I'm constantly trying to get him to, at least just cleanse or put an SPF on. It's really funny because sometimes they'll listen to me as their mum and sometimes they don't listen and they'll say, oh, you're into skincare, blah, 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 blah. But it's about then saying, well, have a look at this, have a look at the Instagram account of one of the doctors that we know and love, or having a look at what the brands are saying, because then they will take that information on a little bit better. But also just looking at consistency and trying not to let them jump on the bandwagon of the next thing.
Yeah. I definitely think that not scaremongering as such, but also saying if you do certain TikTok trends, it could actually then later on in life become an issue to the skin. So it could be damaging and then you're going to end up spending more money and obviously trying to rectify. Yeah. And also probably not putting a stigma that you don't have to look like what people do on social media, because as we know there's filters galore. So like you said earlier, it's about sort of like the basics, so good cleansing routine, start protection in terms of your SPF, and also looking at diet, because as we know, sugar, especially if you're starting with the hormones, starting with blemishes, sugar feeds into that, and obviously that can make then people more conscious of that, especially at school.
Correct. And I think the biggest thing for me, I've always looked at trying to avoid eating disorders. But I've always said if you eat a certain amount of sugar, it's your skin that I'm bothered about. I'm not bothered about if you put on weight. That's not where I'm at. It's your skin. And luckily I've got a couple of children that will listen to me on that front. It's about letting them have a little bit of something, but not everything.
So hopefully that's answered the question. But basically, the baseline is make sure they don't go into too many trends. Keep it nice and simple. Seek advice from obviously us on blogs, even get in touch with us. Look at the diet to make sure that it's not just all sugar fiend. And obviously just make sure that they're not buying loads of different acids when they don't need it for that skin.
Yeah. And I think with a lot of mums, when we've gone from the clinic side of things, it's about when the children have, if they have got acne or they're starting with the conditions, it's about them knowing that you're listening to them. So you're trying to help them and encourage them. And I think once they know that mum's not dismissing that, they feel listened to, and that helps as well.
Yeah. Perfect. Next question.
Hi, Face the Future. I'm just wondering, is the SPF in my makeup or moisturiser enough, or do I need to apply a separate sunscreen as well?
So for this question, I would say it's not enough, purely for the fact that you are not going to be using the right amount. So if you've seen our SPF campaigns that we do, when we always say about 2 finger whips, that is the amount that you need to get that SPF from that product. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're in winter or you've got somebody who doesn't have a real concern, or you're needing a budget, then you have got products where it's got an SPF in it, but I'd stick with those more for a winter time. But I'd only probably look at that more as a moisturiser. Definitely with makeup, I would always say use a separate SPF, because if you've got a makeup that's got an SPF of 30 in and you don't use the right amount, it's not going to be an SPF of 30. It's probably going to be an SPF of 10 or 15, which isn't going to be enough to protect.
Yeah, I think as well with your skin, which skin type you are.
Definitely.
So I know I can put my makeup on at the start of the day, and because I've got a combination skin, it slides off.
Yeah.
So I am having to reapply maybe with a powder that might have an SPF in there. But ideally you want to ensure that you are putting something on throughout the day if you can, just because we're on the screens, we're protecting now against UVA, UVB, also infrared, HEV from screens. But also our SPFs are really intelligent now. So some people get away with maybe not needing a moisturiser and just going in for the SPF for hydration.
So they've got all these skincare benefits in a lot of the brands.
A lot of the brands have got antioxidants, and they're a little bit more, I always call them intelligent.
Yeah, it's a really good word, isn't intelligent?
Yeah.
And I like how you said about skin types, because I do think, so say if you've got pigmentation, for example, you definitely don't want to rely on makeup or a moisturiser, because obviously you're trying to treat the pigment, and we know that pigment obviously is the biggest thing that obviously triggers it is your UVA, UVB, all your lights, like you say, from your screens. Definitely.
And if you're using your strong retinols, your tretinoin, we need to make sure we are, yes, everybody needs an SPF, but we really need to make sure that when we're using a lot of acids, retinols, things like that, we are protecting the skin even more so.
Yeah. And also, like you just said, I like the word with the intelligent SPFs, is it can be a bit of a minefield, because there's a lot of SPFs, there's a lot of brands. But again, that's why we're here. We're here to obviously tell you what are our best sellers, what ones we've personally used, what ones are best for different skin types, different skin concerns. So utilise our knowledge, and then we will give you an honest answer of what we think is going to be best for you.
My question is, at what age should I start using anti-aging products, and what is best to add into my routine first?
So for this question, it's really hard because I'm not even there with the anti-aging products yet. So for skin age, you'll have seen, Suze, obviously, over the years that we've worked in this industry, that you could have somebody who's 25, but the skin age is actually 35 because of obviously sun damage, how they live their lives,
environmental lifestyles,
smokers. So as much as obviously we always say, age, we should start, always go on your skin age. But as we know, from the age of 25, roundabout, you get to lose 1% of your collagen.
Yeah.
Every single year.
And it's a real tricky one, actually, because we're talking about active ingredients. So when we're talking about age management products, a lot of people are thinking, really, it's retinol, vitamin C, and it is. But actually, we've just discussed, within the teenage routine to use an SPF. An SPF is one of the best anti-aging products because of 80% of the way we age is the sun exposure. So you're absolutely right. Everyone's skin goes under these different natural stresses and aggressors. So in terms of SPF, we're going to use that from day dot if we can. Mid-20s, early 30s, this is when we really start to think about, well, our friends are all using different products. We're also noticing that, we may be in a picture that we've had taken at work that our eyes are a little bit wrinkly, or we're starting to see, those expression lines a little bit more. And at that point, that's where we know collagen and elastin's losing, and
I think it depends though also what people are classing as anti-aging products, because vitamin C, which is one of the key ingredients that we should be using, you can use from obviously a younger age, so from 20s upwards. And vitamin C, as much as everybody knows that vitamin C is for obviously antioxidant protection, it is for collagen production as well. So that is an anti-aging ingredient.
Yeah.
And then you've got, like you've just said, your retinol. So again, a lot of people just think, well, I've heard of vitamin C, I've heard of vitamin A's, retinols, so I must be using them. Again, people don't associate them with anti-aging. And again, a retinol is an anti-aging because it's helping with the cell turnover. Yeah. So actually, people are using anti-aging products, aren't they? But they're not probably realising.
Yeah. And I think as well, if you've got maybe somebody that is an acne sufferer in their teen years, they might start with a vitamin A earlier. So it is age management, but it's also increasing that cellular turnover. It's reducing that P. acne bacteria. It's warding off, that it's minimising the oil control.
Yeah.
So we look at everybody as an individual, don't we?
Oh, definitely.
And what's going to work for you might not work for your sister.
Yeah. But I think the main thing is if you're wanting, so really from your mid-20s is definitely you should be doing your vitamin C's, your retinols, your SPF obviously from even an earlier age. And then I think only like you've just said is when you start to notice expression lines, any fine lines, sort of loss of firmness, then look at your other probably anti-age ingredients like your peptides, anything that's more for like your lifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And specific areas.
Yeah, peptides are absolutely fantastic, and they come in lots of different forms as well. Peptides are, to target collagen production, or we might have peptides like growth factors for healing and repair. Yeah, we get a little bit excited with a lot of these things. So yeah,
and to be fair, if you use those kind of things when you've got a younger skin, it's not going to harm the skin. It just means that you've got nothing to then try as you get older, but then also you're not really going to see much of a difference because your skin's not going to need it. So you might as well stick with your mains and your simples of vitamin C, a retinol, SPF. They're your key ones that are really going to help your skin.
Yeah.
What is the best way to incorporate copper peptides into a regime that also features vitamin C and tret?
Right. Okay. So we do get this question quite a bit, actually. How do I put this easily? So copper peptides are absolutely amazing for age management, aren't they? And as we know, vitamin C and tretinoin are as well. So it depends on how often you're using the product. So copper peptides can't be used at the same time as vitamin C.
Nope.
So if I'm using a vitamin C on my morning routine, I would probably choose to use my copper peptides on the night time. Yep. However, if I'm using tretinoin on the night time, at the same time, it can't be used. So what we would tend to do with copper peptides is we like to slide it into our routine if we're looking at an every other kind of routine. So if I'm using tretinoin on the night time, I might use my copper peptides instead of my vitamin C on a morning time. And if I'm using vitamin C on a morning time and I'm having the day off the tretinoin, I'll use my copper peptides at night time.
Yeah.
So as long as we're not using them on the same application as each active ingredient, then we're good to go.
Yeah. And for me, really, you shouldn't be using tretinoin every single night anyway. Yeah. And it's not good to use tretinoin consistently with it being a prescription-only vitamin A. You will have times where you've got breaks in there. So like you said, Suze, use your copper peptides when you've got your breaks and your tretinoin. Keep your vitamin C on the morning because obviously that's going to give you the most protection for your antioxidant. Tretinoin, it depends on why you're using the tretinoin, I suppose. I'm assuming it's for maybe age management if you're using a vitamin C. So copper peptides, like you say, will slot in nicely, but you don't want to use them at the same time. And the reason why is they counteract each other. So if you use your copper peptides and your tretinoin on a night time together, you could actually get more of an adverse reaction because of obviously how they work together. And then if you used it with your vitamin C, then it would just stop the vitamin C, them working basically. So you'd be like wasting your money really. So yeah, use all three together, but not in the same application together. So vitamin C morning and then definitely tretinoin one night, copper peptides the other night. That's how I'd probably play it.
That's it. And it just reduces the risk of any irritation.
Yeah, definitely. So I think probably just one more question.
Hi, Face the Future. My question is that my skin seems to get dry in winter but oily in the spring. Can you tell me why this happens and how can I balance it?
So for this one, skin types will change with seasons. Always does. And one of the main reasons is because in winter, we have things like central heating, we have the blowers on in the car. So even if you've got an oilier skin, it's going to get dehydrated. If you already have a dry skin, it's going to be dehydrated on top of dryness. And then obviously when we go into spring, so like you, Suze, your skin, and mine actually as well, is we've got more of a combination, so your T-zone. So I don't know about you, but when it gets a little bit warmer and a bit more, humid, especially obviously when you wake up on a morning, you get that little bit more of a shine and a little bit more of an oilier texture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find, as you've just said, winter months, I am a little bit drier. The way that I tend to combat it is by adding in a hyaluronic acid daily. Because I find that as my skin, sometimes as well, if my skin is really dehydrated, it produces more oil and then I become oilier. So I'm in a little bit of a cycle. So try and keep it constant with that hyaluronic and look at a lighter moisturiser maybe in the spring, heavier moisturiser when it is dry in the winter, just to cut down that transepidermal water loss.
Yeah, and you don't need to change all of your products like you've just said, do you?
No.
Hyaluronic acid you can use all year round on all skin types because it is there to hydrate. It's to replace your water. Yeah. It's not to obviously make an oily skin oilier. It is literally there to replace water in it. So you need it throughout the whole of the seasons. But like you've just said, is sometimes in winter, I always go for like a richer night cream. But if I use that in like your spring, summertime, I'd just be dripping and then I'd end up breaking out because it'll be clogging my pores too much. So then I go to like a lightweight one, like a gel. But all your other products, your cleansers, you don't need to change. You don't need to change your vitamin C's. Like you say, it's really just sometimes the texture of certain moisturisers, but your HA you can use. But it might be that you use your HA more often in probably winter than you do in summer. Would you agree with that with your skin routine?
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like it drinks it in the winter. But like you've just said, hyaluronic is something we naturally have as a baby and it does deplete as well. So just keeping that as a constant in my routine 365 days a year.
Yeah, it's a fabulous product. And then, again, there's so many hyaluronic acid products on the market. We're here to obviously guide you through what will be the best because there's obviously different HAs out there. But, a HA is a fab for one for anyone.
Yeah, and can suit a budget as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely.
So that's it for all the questions that we've got today from our Face the Future community. Thank you for sending in your questions. We really enjoyed answering them.
And thank you for joining us from Skincare and Beyond. If you would like to be featured in our next FTF advice session, then please get in touch with any questions.
See you next time. Bye guys.